time for another exorcism. Hello, everybody. I'm back again, and I know I just put up my review for Exorcist II. Now it's time to talk about the third entry, The Exorcist III, which was released in 1990, 13 years after the events of Exorcist II. Or no, let me rephrase that. Not after the events. This came out 13 years after Exorcist II was released, and it actually ignores the events of its predecessor, and actually acts more like a true sequel to the original film. In fact, it acts more like a true sequel to. So it's like Exorcist III. Like I said, it ignores Exorcist II and goes straight to the original movie. Basically, for more than 15 years, Police Lieutenant Kinderman has been haunted by the death of his friend, Father Damien Karras, after the events of the original film. Now, on the 15th anniversary of the exorcism that claimed the priest's life, Kinderman's world is once again shattered when a boy is found decapitated and savagely crucified. It's just the beginning of a nightmare series of bizarre religious murders. Basically, the killings begin to mimic the MO of the infamous Gemini killer, but unfortunately the man has been dead for 15 years. And but all the killings begin to mimic, like, the victims are done in the same exact style that the Gemini killer was known for. So Kinderman's once again caught up in a series of horrific events that may have had something to do with the exorcism that took place 15 years prior. Exorcist III was directed by William Peter Blatty himself, and yet it's hard to believe that this is only one of two films that William Peter Blatty directed. Now, the other one he made that came out back in the late 70s, the name of the title of the movie it's eluded my mind, but basically, this movie, Exorcist III, is actually based on another book that William Peter Blatty wrote called Legion, which was released in 1983. And again, I'm assuming that I don't know if the book itself has tie-ins to the actual events of The Exorcist. I'm assuming it does, and the events of the book obviously have been tied into the events of the original movie as well. But I will say, though, for fans of the Exorcist franchise, Exorcist III is often considered by most fans around the world, to be the perfect follow-up to the original movie. Basically, obviously ignoring Exorcist II because, like I said, William Friedkin and William Peter Blatty obviously just condemned the film, and they just literally pretended like the sequel didn't exist. And even the fans felt the same way, too. William Peter Blatty said, "Nah, forget Exorcist II. This is the real sequel." And for some fans, it is, because Exorcist III basically pretty much brings back the dark and creepy tone that the original film had. But in some ways, I think Exorcist III, out of all the films in the franchise, I think it's the downright creepiest film of all the movies in the series. Even the two prequel films, I think this is I think this movie is more terrifying than even the original film. But, it's all about preference, and there are some parts of this movie I swear may have influenced director David Fincher when he went on to make Seven. The Gemini killer, the style in which he took his victims out, and of course the MO, the descriptions of the victims' deaths. I mean, I swear, I think David Fincher was influenced, and Andrew Kevin Walker, who was also the writer of Seven, I think they were influenced by this movie a little bit, and I think they were. Exorcist III, like I said, was released in theaters in 1990. Instead of Warner Brothers releasing it, this time Morgan Creek put the film out theatrically. And it was distributed by, Morgan Creek was the company that put up the money to make the film, and the movie was distributed by 20th Century Fox in 1990. The movie was released, and it obviously got far better critical acclaim than Exorcist II did. And it was also a fairly much better hit, financially and critically, than Exorcist II. It was made on a budget of $11 million, and it grossed $44 million with domestic and worldwide combined. Yeah, the movie was definitely more profitable. And of course, it did feel like I said, it felt more like a perfect follow up because it obviously the continuity, leading into the events of the third film, as it obviously ties in with the events of the first movie. So yeah, and of course the possession factor is back again as well. Hey, worked in The Exorcist 1 and 3. Bill and Ted joke, by the way. Bill and Ted reference for anybody that got that. So, there are some interesting things I found out about the film. Obviously, it has a wonderful cast of actors. I mean, headlined by George C. Scott, even though a lot of people say that he was probably not one of the best elements of the movie, but I still think he held his own pretty well, despite getting a Razzie nomination for Worst Actor, but I think he was far better in the movie than that. Bringing back Jason Miller, who played Damian Karras in the original film. Scott Wilson, who of course went on to be on famously known for The Walking Dead. Nicole Williamson, who plays Father Morning, who, by the way, actually was directed by John Boorman, who helmed Exorcist II. He was directed by John Boorman in Excalibur. He was Merlin. Brad Dourif, oh man, I gotta say, his performance in Exorcist III is just... He is like the embodiment of pure evil in that movie as the Gemini Killer. This has to be one of the most creepiest performances he ever gave in any movie ever. I mean, everybody, of course, Brad Dourif is obviously known by fans as Charles Lee Ray, also the voice of Chucky from the Child's Play films, and of course, his Oscar-nominated performance in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The other interesting thing I just realized about Exorcist III is that George C. Scott plays Lieutenant Kinderman in this movie, whereas in the original film from 1973, the actor that played him was Lee J. Cobb. Lee J. Cobb played juror number 3 in the original 12 Angry Men from 1957. Fantastic movie, by the way, for those of you that haven't seen it yet. Great movie. And it's funny because 40 years later in 1997, 7 years after Exorcist III came out, they actually remade 12 Angry Men, and George C. Scott actually played juror number 3, and the 12 Angry Men remake, I believe, was directed by William Friedkin, who had helmed the original Exorcist. That's an interesting connection right there, actually. Also, Exorcist III stars Lee Richardson. His name's not on the back here, by the way, but he is in the movie, and he actually plays another priest who... he is talked to by another priest who offered to take him out to a movie, and he was asked what his favorite movie of all time is up to that point, and he said, The Fly. Now, that's interesting because Lee Richardson actually did appear in The Fly 2, which came out the year before Exorcist III did. And at one point, Brad Dourif says in the film, he mentions the phrase child's play. And it's kind of funny because the same year Exorcist III came out, he was also working on Child's Play 2 at the time. So yeah, this was... and also, when the film came out theatrically in 1990, Mill Creek actually... obviously, William Peter Blatty, yes, wrote and directed, and... unfortunately, Morgan Creek at one point took control of the film and obviously edited and cut a few things out that obviously Blatty wanted for the movie, but not what the studio wanted. So just like Exorcist II, this excellent Blu-ray release here by Shout Factory, also a collector's edition release, does contain 2 alternate cuts of the movie. The first disc has the theatrical cut, and the second disc has the so-called director's cut that where apparently I'm assuming Shout Factory tried to release a version of the film that was more to William Peter Blatty's liking. Now I think this release came out after William Peter Blatty had passed away. I think it did. I could be wrong. I apologize if I am wrong. So I can't remember what year William Peter Blatty passed away in, but I know the director's cut was, they tried to make it more to what William Peter Blatty originally envisioned for Exorcist III, but there were obviously some things for the third movie that the studio wanted, but obviously not what the director wanted. And that's something that's rather irritating. Well, the funny thing is, Exorcist III came out the same year Clive Barker's Nightbreed was released, and that's another film that unfortunately fell under the axe of studio interference, where the theatrical cut was more what the studio wanted, but not what director Clive Barker wanted. But it eventually, Clive Barker was finally able to put out a director's cut release of the film that was more to his liking. So, at the Saturn Awards, something I forgot to mention in the Exorcist II video. Exorcist II, The Heretic, did pick up a Saturn nomination for special effects, which, by the way, it lost to Star Wars. No, not really much of a contest there. But Exorcist II had some pretty decent effects, and it did pick up a couple of nominations for, like, Best DVD, Blu-ray collection of its respective years. And Exorcist III did pick up a few nominations at the Saturns itself, winning the 1991 Saturn for Best Writing. And it was a nominee for Best Horror Film that year, too, which it lost to Arachnophobia, which is interesting because in 1990, William Friedkin also had a movie come out that year, which was The Guardian. And both Exorcist III and The Guardian were both nominated for Best Horror Film, but they both lost to Arachnophobia. So anyway, like I said, Exorcist III is often looked at by fans as the absolute best sequel, or the true sequel, and he even has some moments in the film that I swear it has one of the it still has one of the best jump scares I've ever seen for any horror movie ever. Like, this movie, again, is a prime example of how to do a good jump scare for a film. Now, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody that hadn't seen it, but I mean, when you watch the movie, when you get to the scare, you'll know what I'm talking about. It does have some good creepy elements in the film. It really does. And as I mentioned earlier, I swear that this movie definitely had inspirations to the actual movie Seven, which came out 5 years later. So anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the Blu-ray real quick here. As I've shown earlier, there are two discs. Disc 1 is the theatrical cut. Disc 2 is the director's cut. I chose to watch the theatrical version, although I do need to sit down and put the director's cut in eventually, because I do want to see what they did for how much they tried to faithfully recreate what William Peter Blatty his original intentions, to see what it could have been. And of course, like Exorcist II, it was released on Blu-ray through Shout Factory, and it also got the collector's edition treatment. Honestly, yeah, there's the theatrical cut got a 2K digital scan, and honestly, it looks amazing. It's presented in a 1A5x1 widescreen anamorphic, and honestly, it looks beautiful. Honestly, far better than what Exorcist II looked like. There's a lot of detail and all that. Now, I've seen The Exorcist III. The first time I actually saw it was on VHS, and I ignored all the home video releases because when I got The Exorcist, I've had The Exorcist on DVD twice before I got the Blu-ray, and that was the only film in the entire franchise I ever owned until I felt adventurous and wanted to pick up the sequels, so I did. And that was when Shout Factory put out excellent collector's edition releases of the two sequels. And yeah, the picture quality on the disc looks amazing. I would say out of 5 stars, I'd actually have to give it a 4.5 out of 5. It looks beautiful. As for the audio, it's presented in DTS 5.1. There's also a 2.0 DTS track as well. And honestly, the audio tracks sound pretty good. I mean, probably not as good as the video looks, but honestly, it sounds pretty good, actually. I would say out of 5 stars, I might have to give it a 4 out of 5. There are subtitles here. Also, something I forgot to mention in the Exorcist II Blu-ray, there are subtitles on there as well. Just English subtitles. But this one, again, also has only English subtitles. As for the bonus features, once again, this 2-disc set is jam-packed with a wealth of material on the making of the film. Lots of stuff here spread across 2 discs. And as I said, the 2 discs contain 2 alternate cuts of the movie. There's a vintage featurette on the theatrical cut disc, photo gallery, theatrical trailer, TV spots, deleted scenes, alternate takes, and bloopers. Vintage interviews. These are not new. These were actually done during the production of the film, obviously. That's what vintage means. So they were made during the production of the movie. So you have interviews with pretty much everybody. The second disc has the director's cut, and it has all the new stuff, like all the new documentaries and featurettes. Has a new audio interview with William Peter Blatty. They put it on the audio track. It acts like a audio commentary almost, so you can actually play it during the movie. New Wonderful Time. That's not a typo, by the way, because it's spelled that way deliberately. Interviews with producer Carter DeHaven and more. New Signs of the Gemini, an interview with Brad Dourif as he looks back on the film. New Devil in the Details, interview with production designer Leslie Dilley, and even more. Music for a Padded Cell, an interview with composer Barry D. Vorzon. I apologize if I didn't pronounce it right. All This Bleeding, look at the additional shoot and special effects, so it's obvious, that documentary focuses on, why the extra scenes were shot, where they tried to emulate what William Peter Blatty originally wanted for the movie, instead of the cut that the studio actually wanted. So I would say, yeah, that's actually a well-rounded out collection of bonus features. And yes, just like Exorcist II, it was released on DVD a couple of times without Now, I can't recall if the DVD had any extras on it at all. I can't recall. I can't remember if anybody still has that copy of it on DVD. That's okay. That'd be pretty cool if it had anything on it. But I know it did get released on DVD in the box set, which had all the films in the franchise. And it also got released on Blu-ray, once again, with all the movies in the franchise. But then the Shout Factory version came out, and they included all this additional material. I'm assuming the featurettes and the interviews were included on the original release, because if it said new, it would have included them. So I'm assuming they were on the previous releases. Or maybe another release, maybe internationally, probably, I don't know. But honestly, the bonus features out of 5 stars, I'd have to give this one, again, a solid 5 out of 5, because Shout Factory went above and beyond and produced a well-rounded out supplemental package for Exorcist III. Now, Exorcist III recently just got a 4K release, so again, if that's your cup of tea, then by all means. But again, I'm not into 4K, so I'm perfectly happy with just the Blu-ray here. So, yeah, like I said, Exorcist III, I did find it pretty enjoyable, and it is rather creepy, and when it comes to the films in the series, obviously the original is often still considered the greatest one. Like I said, as I mentioned in my video of the sequel, give it a try. I don't think it's as bad as everybody says, but I think the biggest problem there is that it hid too much in the shadow of the original film. Now, the third movie, fans obviously love Exorcist III because it brings back the creep factor of the original film. And that I can agree with, but honestly, I think I might have to go a little further and say this film, I think, is way creepier than the original movie. But is Exorcist III worth watching? Oh yeah, absolutely. It is very well worth watching. So, and honestly, the Blu-ray release here, the collector's edition by Shout Factory, is a gorgeous one. It has a fantastic video presentation. The audio is really good. The extras are plentiful. So once again, it's a worthy addition to your library. And I also have here the only other film in the franchise I have. I don't have Dominion, but I have the prequel film Exorcist: The Beginning. But I'll save this one for another day. So I'm about to go see the new Exorcist Believer and see if it's any good. Like I said, I have not been hearing a lot of good talk about it. But for some people, they said it was pretty good. But for a lot of people, they said it was total garbage. But I want to go see it myself and see if it's any good. So I hope I enjoy it. Anyway, this concludes the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I will continue to do more videos like this in the days to come. So until then, everybody take care, be safe, and be well.